At this pivotal time in humanity's evolution, we are beginning to remember our organic technology. A technology, when used correctly, can create an experience that the majority of people the world over want to live. It is time to use this technology consciously for our own benefit and healing, and no longer unconsciously for our own demise. We are divine creatures, creating both our own personal and our collective experience, moment to moment. We invite you to join us in the reawakening of this technology through experiment and experience the power to create and manifest. Become part of the 3%. The collective imagination.
Welcome, everybody, to the Collective Imagination for this week. I'm Lisa Harrison, and I'm joined, as always, by Barbara in New York.
Hey, Lisa.
How are you?
I'm great. I'm so glad to be here tonight. I think it's going to be an amazing show.
And it's great to have you back online.
Thank you.
And, of course, we've got Bob in Pennsylvania.
Hello, Lisa, Barbara. Welcome to the show, everyone. Going to have a great time.
Nice. And you've got your friend Jason with you?
Jason's here. Hello, everybody.
Hey, hi, Jace.
Hi, how are you guys? Glad to be here. Long time listener, first time contributor, I guess.
Thanks, Jason. And, of course, we've got Chris.
Good morning, good evening, for wherever you are. Good to be here.
Yes, it is. And what we don't have is Michael and Peter, our energy boys. They're, oh, God, I don't even want to think about what they're doing, together in Norway. Who knows what kind of magic those two are creating while they're actually physically in the same space.
Well, I'm actually expecting more spirals in Norway, actually.
Oh, that could be fun.
One of those big blue spirals in the sky.
Nice. They could get up to all sorts of mischief. Now, I don't know if anybody's been to their website, but apparently it got hacked recently, and there were messages were put up there, and strange UFO and ET pictures, and all the Galactic Federation of Light had a bit of a field day by the looks of things with the Energy Boys website. But I believe it's all fixed now. But I thought it was funny, personally. Well, we know how anti-GFL they are. So, yeah, Lisa's having a big chuckle. And I'm glad to be back too. I did miss the show last week, but I did have something rather pressing I needed to deal with. So thanks to everybody for doing a great job. And if I can, I just want to ask Barbara to give a recap on what last week was all about. And I believe you guys were all called and with the expectation to participate this week with some stories. So, Barbara.
Well, we talked about a lot of things, and a theme seemed to evolve at one point, which had to do with our connection with Source and Source communicating with us, whether you call Source God or, whatever you call that, that energy. And we ended with a meditation that was connecting all of us through a tapestry that Bob had us mentally project and create to connect all of us, as well as connect us together and then connect us with Source, in hopes that we would all have our own experiences throughout the week that followed, which ends today, and have our own experiences with where maybe Source actually presented itself to us in some of the ways that we had described last week. So we're hoping that folks will call in or post in chat and share some of those experiences that they had where they feel that they had a direct connection with Source or Source was trying to communicate with them in some way.
So did you have an experience yourself?
I always have all kinds of experiences. I just don't always know what they mean.
I heard you say something about a synchronicity with somebody else, Gina.
Yeah, well, that was last week on the show. I talked about the fact that I had been in a grocery store and was singing or listening to the song, a Pink Floyd song, in my head, not realizing that I was actually listening to it. And the song itself is just the repeat of a single line, which is there anybody out there? And they just sing it over and over again. And I happened to be singing that Pink Floyd song in my head, unbeknownst to me, as you twitter away in your head with thoughts all the time. And there was a gentleman behind me who had, I don't know where he came from because he wasn't there when I got in the self-serve checkout line, who actually kind of answered it. And he answered it in rhythm with the song that I was singing. And he said, there ain't anybody out there. And I turned around and looked at him. And, for the whole story, you can go back to the archive and listen to it. It's in the last half hour of the show. And as I was sharing this story, Gina said she had a very similar story, and she was kind enough to come on and share it, where she had seen a man whose description seemingly matched the description of the same person that I saw, but she saw him in a liquor store in wherever she lives, I think California or something. I'm not sure. Gina, if you're in the room, let us know. But it was from that we were hoping that we would share some of these and see if there were overlaps like that, because that was really unique and fun. But this week... So
was he just talking? Was he talking to you? Was he talking to himself? Was he on the phone? What was he...
He wasn't talking to himself. I don't know who he was talking to. I think he may have been talking to a checkout person. The truth is, I looked at him and I thought, who are you talking to? And he wasn't looking at anyone in particular, but he was looking forward and he wasn't looking at me at first. Because when I turned around and looked up at him, he had to look down at me from wherever he had been looking before. And as I expressed on the show, I believe that he was just one of the challenged guys that lives in the neighborhood. I don't want to call him homeless because I don't know if he was homeless, but he clearly was, was having some life challenges. He was a bit disheveled, clean but disheveled. Happy, though, just a happy guy. He was in his late 50s, dark skin, over 6 feet tall, very stealth, built and strong looking. But he had a giant smile and, really bright. I called them googly eyes before, but just because they were like just almost popping out of his head with his love of life. And I've seen a lot of those folks venture into this particular grocery store. It's a large chain, and they always, meaning the people who work there, entertain having these folks come in. In the summer, they come to get cool. In the winter, they come to warm up. And I believe that in most cases, they stay and they chat with some of the folks who work there because I've seen them there before. And that's who I thought he was. It's just one of those guys. And I was in the line. There was no one behind me. I was the next one to go in the self-serve checkout, and I only had a couple of items, and I was just really surprised that all of a sudden he was behind me, but I didn't even realize that I was singing that song in my head until he answered it, and he answered it in the same cadence that the song was in. So I just thought that was really, really interesting, and I kind of chuckled to myself, and I thought this guy answered a question I didn't even know I was asking. And then Gina said that she had that similar experience, but in a completely different place in the world. We just realized the unique quality of it all, the magical quality of it all.
People that appear to be homeless and have invisible friends, or even enemies for that matter, is something I've noticed a steady increase in the last 5 years, but the last 18 months in particular. Australia and Sydney, you really have to hang out in certain parts of the city to find homeless people. And it's usually around, Central Station. It's not as prevalent as it seems to be in other parts of the world. And yet I see it I've seen it more and more over the last 2 years, and and people talking to themselves, supposedly
Lisa,
to themselves.
I've seen that so much when I was in Frankfurt, Germany, and I spent about 4 years there, and I used to comment it to my friends all the time. I have never seen so many imaginary friends in one city. And it's not that they're, just talking to themselves. I've seen people open doors for them, and I mean, these are full adults, and not all of them were transient. I mean, some of them were dressed in suits and ties and talking, laughing, and I'm thinking to myself, is there really someone there I'm not seeing? Are they experiencing a completely different world than me?
Well, the one thing I've seen more of, in particular, is people that I said would have, say, imaginary enemies. Arguments and fights and physical fights. I saw one guy looking like he was physically fighting off somebody that was attacking him. And I was really concerned for him because I thought he was going to end up on the road. But and there was I read an article a few years ago about it was a doctor who had his own spiritual experience. I can't remember his name now. It's like a kundalini awakening. And he had spent years working in mental institutions. And after his own awakening, he began to think that half of his patients were probably people who had had kundalini experiences and just didn't cope, weren't able to assimilate it and really keep a grip on both worlds. And when he started to look at these people and talk to them from that perspective, he found evidence of that. And not that he could help them too much, but just being there and able to talk with these people from that perspective was very helpful to them, and certainly to him as well, integrate his own experience. But I thought it was fascinating to think that, a good percentage of the people who are in care could well be people who have had just a really intense spiritual awakening and just not coped. And that's what I think when I see these people now. I think, you are seeing things that I'm not seeing, and maybe they're ugly and maybe they're not. And I don't know. I just don't see them as crazy in the traditional sense of the word.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you. I think that a large portion of them are just, if anything, more advanced. They have abilities that we can't conceive of. I know last week that Peter's perspective was that the essence itself, the physical manifestation itself, was Source, finding a way to communicate with me. And I was more of the opinion that it was a real human being who was temporarily being used as a vessel to provide what ultimately was a message for me, or information for me, or just, a chuckle, just to brighten my day. Whatever it was created at a higher level, but this was a real guy. He just happened to say that at the right moment so that it meant something to me.
We're all used as messengers all the time for each other. I mean, I come out and say things every now and then that I really don't know why I said it, but it turned out to be the perfect thing that person needed to hear. And I don't know really why I said it or where it came from.
Here's something to consider, Lisa. What if the universe is structured much like the internet, where it's all connected, and whenever you think or you feel, you're sending out a request or whatever, and it follows a change to whatever is closest to you. And that response will come out, whether it be the radio, whether it be another person, or if nothing is also around, maybe it's just a song that's playing in your head, or a bird, or something.
Yep.
But the evidence is there when you start to pay attention to it. I started paying attention to the song that's playing in the back of my head, you know? And I started to think, why is that song playing in the back of my head? So I started to pick apart the lyrics of what the song was saying, and it would be completely related to something that's going on directly in my life right at that time. And so there's messages, there's communication that's happening, and I think not just imaginary friends, a lot of these communications sometimes we're not aware of until we are.
I've made life-changing decisions based on a song. I know that sounds probably a bit strange, but I have. A song has come on the radio, where maybe even through the sound system in a supermarket, and right at the right moment. And I've just gone, I know,
Right place,
okay,
right
I get it. Right place, right time, and I've made life-changing decisions based on that.
Okay, but stepping back from that a minute, someone in the supermarket entertainment system made a decision to have that song in the queue, and it happened to be played when you were in a spot and in a state of mind to hear it and make a life-changing decision. So, how causality, how far back through that chain do we go? Because we end up in the place of being part of a tapestry, and everything we do is part of the tapestry, as inconsequential as it might seem. I mean, I had a very short conversation with a checkout chick the other day in the supermarket, and she looked at me quite startled, and it was just some comment about, she was expressing a momentary, if you like, she was trying to make a decision whether she was going to have a good night or a bad night, and I suggested that she should really decide to have a good night. And she kind of looked at me. Now, I've thought nothing of it until this moment, and I thought, well, maybe that was just something that I was programmed to do for her at that point in time. And we do that all the time, and that's the tapestry we're living in. It's just, when you start to think at it from that height, you sort of go, wow, who's organising this?
Who's organising this?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, I agree. In the end, after having plenty of time now to review the thing in retrospect, I'm of the mind that when I was singing that song and the lyric is there anybody out there? And that guy says, there ain't anybody out there, that we're not talking about, ETs or anything like that. I think the message that I ultimately got was, it's all inside of me.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Has anybody I'm sure there's people listening or people that are in the chat room that maybe have any of you guys ever seen the movie Fight Club?
Yes.
I think what we're talking about right now is a final example.
Hang on. We're not allowed to talk about Fight Club.
I'm sorry. Sorry. First and second rules, right.
Yeah,
prime
that's
example,
okay.
though, prime example. Or there's even a lot of songs from bands that I've listened to for years that have started to write actually songs about these type of experiences. So, I mean, I agree with Barbara. It is us. It's just there's so many of us right now that are awakening at once that we're all sharing the same experience, and it's resonating in such a way that it's kind of like a train wreck. Like you can't stand the vibration, but you don't want to turn away. I mean, I'm not to say it's a train wreck in a negative way by any means, but that's the best way I could describe it right now. Is it might be frightening at first, but it's something that you're interested in, and it's something that is. It's the way things should be, the way things are, and I've been experiencing a lot lately. Once you just accept that, it just falls into place. Like it's all about letting go of fear. It really is, for me, anyways. But I've been hearing a lot of more people talk about it and experiencing it more and more every day. And some people cope with it, and some people don't. That's why I think there's a lot of shootings going on right now all over the world. I think that's why there's a lot of protests going on all over the world. I think there's a lot of people starting to awake right now because they realize, this isn't what they want, and they're looking for a way to change things. And,
Mike in the chat room is just saying the energy is way different on the show tonight, and I'm interested to hear what he means by that.
Yeah, call in, Mike.
Yeah, call in.
Yeah, for anybody who may not be in the chat room or accessing this through the internet, you can call in. You can either click the Skype button if you happen to be online, or the call-in number is 646-716-4598. Just one more time, 646-716-4598. Call in.
Now, there's so many things that we briefly want to touch on today. One of them is gratitude. And for me personally, since the solar eclipse, I think life's just gotten crazier. And I think we're in the throes of whatever's coming up for us at the end of December. And I think it's just going to continue to build. And it's quite easy when it's so intense to lose track of gratitude. But if we can hold on to that underlying sense of gratitude just for being here at this time, no matter what it looks like and how crazy it is and how wonderful it is and whatever may or may not happen, if we can just be grateful for that, just to be here, that's what's kept me stable. I mean, I'm not inundated with negativity at the moment. I was shortly after the eclipse. It was just all a bit chaotic, but it's still chaotic, even though a lot of it's positive. It's just chaotic. So taking a deep breath and just being grateful and finding my center again is what keeps me going. So I just want to throw that out there and hear from Barbara and Bob and Jason and Chris and people in the chat room on that one.
Well, I can say that with respect to gratitude, and I've shared this before with the hosts and the co-hosts and all of the guys on the call at this end. For me, gratitude is my gateway. It's my gateway to connect to the energy that is everything else. It's where I go during the process of meditation. It's what I credit a lot of my synchronicities for, the feelings of gratitude, love, and joy. Whichever one of those I'm tapping into that moment in order to open that door, to move into that realm, that's what starts it for me. And the days that I'm grateful for some of the simple things, like just being able to take a really deep breath of fresh air. It's like, wow, that I can do that. And some people can't even do that. That is a trigger for synchronicities for me. So that's the only thing I wanted to say, was that for me, it's like a gateway.
Lisa,
Bob?
For me, I can tell you where I learned a very powerful lesson about gratitude. When shortly after my paralysis, when I came back to the States, I spent about a year and a half in a nursing home. And if you want to see a depressing place, that's it. Someone's dying every day. People, who you could tell at one time were very productive members of life, just kind of abandoned. And it was very, very hard to be in that space.
So were they mostly elderly people?
Yeah, mostly elderly people. Some of them were just disabled, been in terrible accidents, and there was a group of us, and we used to go out in front, and we would sit and we'd have a cigarette, and there was a group of guys, and this one guy in particular, his name was Joe, and Joe was only about 5 or 6 years older than me. He was in his, early 50s, and he had a massive stroke that the doctors didn't think he would ever recover from, and he couldn't walk. He was in a wheelchair. Half his body was paralyzed. But every day for a year and a half that I was there, every day his wife would come from all the way across. It's about a 20-minute drive. She would come and she would sit and she would have an after-dinner snack with him. She would do it. She would make the trip after work every day. And he would sit out there and look forward, and when her car would pull up, he'd get all bright. And she'd bring back some of his favorite things that you can't get in the nursing home. And the one day she brought back this strawberry sundae from McDonald's, and he was so happy. And he ate the sundae, and she half fed it to him, and he was so happy, And as she was leaving, he started to cry. Mm-hmm. And it almost broke my heart, but I said, you have something to look forward to tomorrow. And as she was leaving, she was like, I just miss her so much. And I said, think about this, Joe. When was the last time you enjoyed a strawberry sundae from McDonald's so much? And he stopped and he looked at me. He's like, you're an amazing man. But it was at that point that I realized that these little things that you take for granted, whether it's just a good meal and the flavor and the taste. My friends will eat around me to tell you that I make orgasmic sounds while I'm eating.
It's actually quite disturbing sometimes. It really is.
Too much information, okay.
Yeah. I'm sorry that the rest of you are scarred with that for the rest of your lives. Now, I was hoping it would just be me.
But I'm enjoying my food.
Bob's right, though. It's actually considered an insult in other countries if you're not vocal about how the food tastes. And I don't mean by saying, oh, that's very good. Like, they actually do, like a starving person. And these are healthy, well-fed people, but that's how they eat every time. It's just...
Well, after 18 months in a nursing home, I'm sure you would appreciate a nice meal.
Yes, very much so.
So, guys, we want you to participate this week, very much so. And so please get on the call. Give us a call. We want to hear from you.
Yeah, come on, Mike. Come on, Lisa. From San Francisco. Come on, you guys.
I'll be in San Francisco, Lisa, next week for a day. By the way.
You guys have to come to Pennsylvania if you can at all.
I can't. I've got no time. I'd love to, but I've got no time. I'm in and I'm out. Oh, not San Fran.
Oh, I thought SF was San Francisco. Never mind.
Like your NY for New York.
Yeah.
No, it's their surname.
That's so funny.
Oh, no, actually, Lisa's Australian. She's over here.
Well, call in anyway, Lisa.
Yeah, she's in Melbourne.
Tell us how much Melbourne is not like San Francisco. Just call in and share.
So, one of the other things we wanted to touch on, and Mike, I'm still waiting for you to ring up and tell us how the show's different, by the way. I haven't forgotten. What we've talked about in the past about having a show starting on the 12th of the 12th, every day until the 21st, probably just for an hour. And again, for me, over the last week, I've had more and more confirmation that this is probably a good idea to create a space for us to come together and help each other reconnect. Because as these energies, again, like I said, from the solar eclipse, I'm still feeling the energies from that, and I think they're going to continue to ramp up, and it's going to be easier and easier to feel unbalanced and caught up in the craziness and the chaos. So having a place where you know that at least for an hour a day, you can come and we'll do a meditation, we'll get centered, connected, and reinforce for ourselves our intentions for what we want for ourselves and for what we want the world to look like next year and on from then on. I just think it just feels very, very right for me. So, and one of the things that I keep getting, this idea of these 3 days between the 21st and the 23rd, I'm getting more and more confirmation from so many sources that we are likely to experience something that we are going to notice. Whether we call it an event, a shift. There was a woman that I was talking to who had been speaking to Indigenous women elders from Western Australia, and they were telling her about the Dreamtime story of the big sleep. So apparently there was a big sleep. Everybody went to sleep for a long time. When they woke up, the world was different. The world was back to the front. So could this be the 3 days of darkness? Could this be, and this also relates to, for those of you who saw my interview with Stephen Strong, he talked about the elder who walked into the park up in Darwin and raised the frequency of that area just a smidge, and people in the immediate area dropped and fell asleep. One gentleman for 5 hours. And if that was the result of increasing the energy in that area just a little bit, then, this energy wave that's heading this way, could it just result in us all having the big sleep? Will it mean that some won't wake up? Will that correlate with, Bible stories of to 1,000 on your left and 1,000 on your right? They will drop. Is that necessarily a bad thing? No. I don't know if any of you have heard of a gentleman or a being, I'm not even sure what to call him actually, or even if it's a collective, much like Abraham, that goes by the name of Ion. He's saying the same thing, that there will be many who leave their physical bodies, but it's because they want to come. It'll almost be a revolving door, and the gulf or the gulf, which I believe is an old Hebrew word for what we would call heaven or the astral, where you go when you die, will be emptied because there'll be a huge influx of souls going there, turning around and coming back, but being sort of more fourth dimensional focused, whereas there'll be those who choose to stay here and go through this shift and come from a third dimensional focus perspective, but having their bodies completely altered, and that it's a choice, and that we've already made it on some level. Lisa's asking what the heck will Christmas Day be like. Who knows? I'm grateful that my mum's coming up. She's going to land here on the 20th. She knows nothing about this. It's quite funny. She knows her daughter's got a website, and that's about it. I don't know if she's ever looked at it, so she's not really sure what I do and what I talk about. But her arriving on the 20th of December had nothing to do with me. She just made those plans, decided she was coming for Christmas, and that's the day she's going to arrive. So I figured, okay, it's all perfect. She doesn't know how woo-woo you are. Oh, she does. She knows I'm woo-woo. She gave up on me years ago. So, where was I? Help. I've just had a mind blank.
You were talking about what to expect from the 21st through those 12 days.
Yeah, and
I mean the 12th, not the 21st.
Jason made an interesting comment before we went live, and I want him to repeat it, because one of the things that, if I have a concern about that time, it's that if nothing tangible and evident happens in some people's lives, the ones who have been looking towards this date for a long time, And the ones who, and I talk to people like this all the time, they are literally hanging on by their fingertips, waiting for this day in the belief and the hope that the world's going to change kind of overnight, and because they just don't want to be in the world the way it is anymore. My concern is that if something doesn't happen that meets their expectation, that meets their hope, I don't know what they'll do. And I've had individuals say to me, if it doesn't change, I'm out of here. They're just going to take themselves out. But I'd like Jason to repeat his comment. Jace, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I hope you're not experiencing this with anybody close. I mean, because I really.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I really think it's I can't honestly say it's a coined psychiatric term, but it's been thrown around, and I've seen it in books, and it's called apocalyptic demise syndrome, where people just they've already, like you said, they have already thought and been programmed to think there's no other way out, and they just shut their body and their minds down, and they're just, strange things have been known to happen, heart attacks, or you go to sleep and just not wake up. I've heard about things like that happen recently, and I'm hoping that's not what is going on, but on a positive note, I would think that this collective would be able to pull people close to us out of it, and anybody else that we could, and by talking about things like this and making people aware.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Jason, didn't you say something about what if we are the event, so that people may be looking for the event outside of themselves and may not perceive it or see it because they're looking for something out there? But you were talking about, what if we are the actual event? We, all of us, what if we are the event?
There are a lot of things that have been going on in my life right now that I could totally relate this to, and I'm not going to get into it because it would just take too much time. But yes, I think that is what is the cause of this, is that people don't realize that we're the ones that are changing the course of history, and we don't see it because we don't have a third-person perspective point of view. We're not seeing things from outside of the event ourselves, and people that are looking for this need to look not just inside of themselves, but maybe outside of themselves, and see how they actually interact with people, and how you guys. I love how you guys enthuse people to get their opinions in, and call in and come in the chat room and get a different perspective. It's the old adage, 4 eyes are better than 2, It's, a billion eyes are better than 2, Any perspective or any other insight on the situation, where anybody likes the opinion or not, it's always a bonus in life. I'm a guy I'm the type of guy that thinks my glass is half full. I'm sorry. I a lot of people say I'm a pessimistic person, but I know I'm optimistic. Somebody don't like that.
Okay, did I just drop out, guys?
And then we all came back somehow. See, I think that, if anything, that's confirmation that we are the event, and they're just trying to say, yes, you're on the right path, go.
We really don't know what happened then. But I was just talking about being the observer. Being able to step back and observe yourself, observe the circumstances that are happening around you. And I find that, I would say the further along I go on my own spiritual journey, the better I get at becoming the observer. And refresh your life. That could have been a good analogy for that. And if that's the case, then hopefully we will be able to observe something as an event, both internally and externally. So if it is only just going on within us, so we can actually step back from that and observe it and notice it.
I think there's a very strong chance that the event is going to be so subtle that only people who are cued to look for it will really see it and feel it clearly, and that for a lot of other people it could well just be another day, unless we have something physically dramatic like the sun dimming, which is a very interesting prospect, but we just don't know. And even if we do see something, if it is subtle, we're still part of the experiment. If the only people that would be really seeing clearly what's going on are those outside our civilization, outside the consciousness field that we live in. And just because we don't have a big ta-da event does not mean that something incredibly significant has taken place. There's many, many, many tipping points in the geopolitical sphere that happen behind the scenes that we never hear about, yet it shifts things. And I wouldn't be surprised if the event actually played out somewhat like that rather than a really obvious physical event, because there's so much information, there's such a wide spectrum of speculation and information about what it is that's coming our way. And my view is I'll roll along with whatever happens. And I guess because I've been exposed to people like you guys for long enough now to shake myself out of the geopolitical mindset that I used to have. Thank you, Lisa. All I can say is that the act of feeling gratitude, what it does for me now as opposed to before, it just continues to remind me that we're heading for something better. That's the way I feel when I get into that state, that there is a reason, that there is actually a plan, and that if you're kind of aware of the momentum that we're now moving in, I think it's a good plan. Not sure what the ending is.
Sorry, this came up once on one of the Oculus radio shows that when we were doing those, and David asked me a question, and my answer was that for as long as I can remember, I've had a feeling of expectation. And when I say as long as I can remember, I mean, really it is, since I was a little kid, this sense of expectation that something was about to happen. And it builds every now and then. And when it builds, something does happen. But it never goes away. And how can I put this? It would take an event. It would actually take an event, real big event, to meet the level of expectation that I've felt all my life. Now, whether that's disclosure, whether it's 3 days of darkness, I don't know, but it would have to be an event. David said, isn't it just the expectation of your life unfolding? And definitely not. That's a process, and that wouldn't meet the level of expectation that I've felt. And so part of me is wondering whether on some intuitive level I know that it's coming, and I've been waiting for it all my life, or is it a memory of something else? I don't know. But it would take an event for me to be able to go, wow, that was it. That's what I've been waiting for all my life. And I still don't know what it would look like. I just know it would have to meet that criteria. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And it also gives very much a reason for having that kind of daily show that you're talking about for the period between December 12 and 21.
And there's also...
You go ahead.
No, go on. Finish what you're saying.
I'm just saying it'll be... Because, okay, everyone's expecting an event. Now we've got millions of people expecting something. And if we're co-creating our reality, something's going to happen. And it gets back to the thought I had last week was, okay, there's this consciousness wave coming from the center of the galaxy, so we're told. Or is it simply that because we've been told it's going to happen and we're so anticipating the event that we created ourselves? We get back into the causality.
We've had this discussion with Michael and Peter several times, is that, I mean, they're pretty adamant that nothing's going to happen on the day. And I've said, but if we create our own reality and we've got, so many millions, if not billions of people expecting something to happen on that day, some expect a cataclysm, some expect a rapture. Some expect a harvest. Some expect whatever they expect. But with so much expectation, wouldn't we be creating it anyway? So
self-answering question.
The trolls are in and out. I tell you what, this show's audio is going crazy.
Yeah, try again, because it looks like we're back on the air. And for everyone who's listening to us, either live or in the archive or in the chat room, sorry, but beyond our control, Blog Talk seems to keep popping us off and bringing us back. It's the elements of the consciousness that is the collective imagination.
I apologize. I'm so sorry.
I'm
so sorry.
Yeah, you got to turn down the volume on your energy, mate.
That's my point. Is like, ever since like June, I'm telling you, since the Venus transit, like I've been, without getting into it too much, I've always been a hyper type of person ever since I was a kid. Okay.
Oh, you know.
No, not me ever. Anyway, my vibration has been uncontrollable lately, to the point where things that I've always stood against and would never really do, like heavy sedation, I have actually been considering. Alcohol is my friend a lot lately. I mean, I'm not saying I'm, drinking a ton or anything, but definitely a glass of wine or something tones me down a little bit. My vibration has been crazy off the charts. I've been crazy energy, can't sleep, ecstatic, and it amplifies other parts of my moods, anger, or anything like that. Thank God I haven't really been that angry or, having too much trouble, with, I guess you would say, negative aspects of people's lives. Because you have to have a balance, and you're going to have bad days and whatever. But I haven't really been, I've been up on the positive. And my vibration, like I said, I can't say it enough, has been off the charts. And I know you guys have been talking about the solar eclipse. We didn't get to see it here in America. I know it was going on over in Australia, but I agree with you, Lisa. I think 100% since then, it's just amplified like 20 times. And it's just been uncontrollable. It really has.
Yeah. And Bob, try and repeat what you said, because I know we've tried it twice, but we finally got you back. So.
What I was saying was, what I like to do is to retrace my steps. Go back just 5 years. That was like in 2007, before the economic crash and everything. And think about the person that you were then and compare it to the person that you are now, and how much has changed. The whole planet has changed. Some countries that were sovereign don't even exist anymore. The whole political scene has changed. The whole economic, social, everything has changed. And this is what one of the things that I'm thinking about. And Lisa, you know a lot about what's going on in my personal life. Think about how much has changed and how closer we are to realizing our dreams. Everything's becoming a reality. And I'm seeing, what Jason said, that a lot of times you're right in the middle of it and you don't realize that the change is happening right in front of you. It's happening as we speak. That's only 5 years ago. 10 years ago, what difference of a person are you today than you were then? And I'm sure everyone that's listening on the show would say, oh my God, it's like I'm in a completely different world.
My world's completely different to what it was 5 years ago. Completely.
Mine as well.
Me too. Yeah, that's a good perspective, Bob. It really is, because one of the problems with experiments like the one we're in is that because we don't realize that we're the experiment, we keep forgetting to check ourselves and what's happening with us, and we keep looking at the world and not back at ourselves. So thank you for that. It's a really good check. It's like tick, yes, check self.
Okay, Mike. I've asked Barbara to try and help you get on the call. I know you're trying to call in. and I don't know what we can do from this end. But Barbara, if you've got any ideas?
I'm actually working on it. I'm also bringing on Scott.
Oh, okay, great.
So give me a second, one by
Scott?
one.
Maybe it was Scott.
Okay, hang on. Keep going. I'm in the background working on this.
Okay, where were we? Perspective, 5 years. Okay. It's
I guess if you look at yourself back at 5 years, and simply ask yourself, if I met the 5 years younger version of myself, would I recognize me? And my answer at the moment is actually no, because it's just been such a massive change in the last 5 years.
Weren't you sort of in the throes of prepper mode 5 years ago? Or not even that?
Oh, unawakened.
Okay.
As I said to Bob earlier today, I got rudely awakened 3 years ago. It's been a very short, sharp trip. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that are the same, who could look back even 3 years and say, I can give you the month. It was March 2009. And I'm a completely different person. In fact, I feel...
When you think back at this you of 3 years ago, would you kind of laugh at him, or would you warn him, or what would you do?
How could you explain something like that to someone like the person that I was? I would laugh at me, probably. I would tell me that I was an embarrassment to myself. And look, I'm just sitting here thinking like, wow, go back 15 years. I mean, it was just such a cloistered, fixed world that we lived in, and now it's far more complex, far more open, but totally different.
Lisa in Melbourne is also saying that was a huge month for her too.
March 2009, rather.
Yeah, Lisa, I just wanted to let you know that we've got Scott with us here.
Oh, hey, Scott.
Good morning, everybody. How are you going? I can. Everybody's having so much fun dropping in and going around in circles this morning. Fabulous stuff.
Yeah, we're playing games today.
Yeah. I wanted to share a few things, but there are people talking right now, so I'm happy just to wait until they're through.
No, go ahead.
The word pragmatism comes to mind. Dealing with the facts that I have in front of me right now is that, yes, definitely something is up, and it has been for a long time. We're all sharing the same sorts of responses to physiological responses to the changes that are occurring. So it's almost like putting a pencil line down the center of paper and saying, look, what is happening to us right now? And we're all primarily experiencing the same sort of shifts in our physiologies, our energetics, our emotions, mental framework, the level and extent of meditations, a whole range of things. The last few weeks, well, especially since the eclipse, I too, like you, Lisa, you actually made a Facebook comment at one particular point, which I totally subscribe to. The feelings were just almost indescribable, that they were horrible. But however, I knew what was going on, and I just sensed that this is all part of the preparation for me anyway. So speaking from my own point of view, what I'm doing is I'm doing practical physical things at the moment. I'm lightening up my body. Well, some of you who know me, I'm actually raw vegan, and that step was taken, 18 months, 2 years ago, in preparation for this time, I believe. I've always known that there is a culmination of something as we move through the threshold, and we've been building up to that. So the change is already taking place. We're just going to go through the eye of the needle, literally. So for me, I'm preparing for a cellular change, which is already happening, and whether it literally switches from one energetic dynamic to another in a moment or not, I don't know, but it's certainly switching as I feel. But what I do sense is a sense of stasis, a sense of quietude in the cellular body during those 3 days, and also there are other powerful impacts, I guess, having some effect on things, whether it's other planets that are moving close to us, bits of large rock, pole shifts, whatever. All that, I think, is all part and parcel of this change for me. So all I'm doing...
Scott, I'm almost doing the opposite to you. For years now, I've been sun gazing. For years, I've been doing the oil pulling in the mornings. For years, I've been doing the 5 Tibetan rites. There's been these things, and meditation. So there's been these things that have been part of my daily life that I've really felt have kept my physical being at a particular level, and also supported my spiritual growth. And what I've found is in the last 3 to 4 months, I haven't been able to do any of them.
Yep.
My sleep is erratic, and I'm just not able to get up in the mornings at dawn, or before dawn, so that I can get myself organised and get down to the beach. I don't even think about doing the rites. I skip my oil pulling and go straight to coffee. Probably drinking more wine, and I'm sort of doing all the opposite things, and it's really weird, and I don't know. I mean, then I did sleep, and
So what I'm getting here is that you're actually having a physical response to a change in your physiology, and how we all respond is completely and utterly different. But for me, the refinement process has been great. It's been lovely. You know, I still enjoy a glass of wine, but I have to say the next morning I feel quite poisoned. But at any rate, I love the relaxation, the ability just to switch off and relax and turn off. But you're right about a lot of the old paradigms, the dogma associated with the spiritual journey that we've been on for much of our lives, or for the last 20-odd years, is falling aside. And I was just saying to Claire, my partner, the other day, who, by the way, has come from Scotland. I know that Peter and Michael are aware of the story, and we found each other on Facebook 2 years ago, and she just literally sold up everything in Scotland this time last year, and she just came out here with a suitcase and started a new life with me here. And, of course, the changes taking place in her physiology is phenomenal as well. So we're doing erratic things. But at the same time, we're still getting up every day and doing things. But, I know it might sound like structure in my day. It's not, actually. It's very disorderly. And you're right. The dogma is falling apart. The structure is falling apart. And we're breathing through one moment to the next. There's no mystery anymore for me. It's totally physical. And I never was a physical person at all. I was quite, quiet in my head, quite, I love the mysteries and magic of life, but now I tell you what, the pain of being has become so intense for me that I have had to be pulled into the physical. So I'm drinking more water without doubt. I'm up to 3 liters a day, and I'm pouring clean food into my system, and it's the only way that I feel as though I can get through this.
Well, so there's other things that I am doing. Like I've increased my water intake. I did a 10-day juice detox fast, and since that time, juice has been a part of my day every day. So there are different things that are coming in, but the stuff that I was really, really enjoying and were very much part of my day, and I guess to some degree I was reliant on those practices. They're gone.
Maybe you just don't need them anymore. Maybe you've evolved to a point.
I think I don't. I don't know why, and I actually miss sun gazing. I'd like to be able to get up and go because I love it.
I felt my body like a sponge now, and I've just been pulling in. I can literally feel the rivulets of energy just pouring into my cells through the pores of my skin, and it's a subtle energetic response I'm having. But I have had terrible depression in the last couple of weeks, terrible depression and anxiety and phobias, which are just difficult to describe. And I know that it passes.
Is that new for you?
I've had it off and on especially the last 20-odd years. Sometimes it's just been a nutritional thing. So I've just bumped up my magnesium. I've got stuck into. I create this little product which I sell called the Veggie Shot, and I just live on it. You know, beetroot, carrot, kale, Australian rain plum, and what have you. And I just put it in water and I drink it, and it's just pure nutrients. It goes into my head real quickly. Seems to feed the serotonin levels, so it quiets me down. Something's getting depleted. Some things get really depleted in my system really quickly. I'm taking my protein from hemp, by the way. That's the other thing I found in recent months. And doing a lot more work in those areas. New foods, new proteins, new energetics, there's so much new energy around some of these new food forms, especially the plant forms, and I'm attracted to it like a moth to a light, and I'm taking it in. And I'm not talking big quantities. I'm grazing. I'm eating probably during the day by volume. If you cup two hands together and you sort of load that up with mounted over the top with salad greens and various other things, some nuts and what have you, that's the extent of it on a daily basis. That's
I'm not eating much at all either.
Yeah. So I don't know if what I'm sharing resonates with anybody else, but No,
it does. There's people.
Actually, I've always believed that, half your diet, what your intake is, of the day, whatever, how you said you use 2 handfuls. If you have 2 handfuls of food and that's all you're going to eat for the day, half of it should definitely be fruits and vegetables, at least. And then you should worry about your grains and your proteins and your whatever else. I totally agree with you on that.
When you said protein from hemp, are you just munching on hemp seeds or?
Yeah, and I do a seed bread, and I have a few little seed snack, and I put hemp powder in that. That's a dehydrated seed bread. So I've got no cooked food, no animal products, none of the old world foods, no processed foods. I prepare it all myself. It's all clean and green, but I do dehydrate a little bit of seed bread, and I put hemp powder in that. And the hemp seeds I put into my salads. Some byproduct of some of my almond and cashew milk. I've got a little bit of paste left, and I make little cheeses out of that, and I roll my cheeses in hemp seeds. What else do I put it in? And I take a little bit of hemp oil daily. I take a teaspoon of hemp oil. Again, it's just full of proteins and trace minerals. Just trace minerals. That's the other thing. I talked about this thing about feeling depleted, and now I'm certainly being drawn to other food sources which are reinstating a lot of those old trace minerals which have been depleted from my body. And I think that has a lot to do with just the reformation, and I use that word just straight out of my heart just then, reformation of my cellular body. It feels like I'm reforming my cellular body. Everything about me is changing, Lisa. My body odor, it's pleasant, it's not unpleasant. Urine smells very different. Everything about my physiology is completely different. I spent 8 days or so in New Zealand a few weeks ago and went to a family reunion. And one of my cousins said, "Oh my God, where'd you get the complexion from? Where did you get that face from? Have you had a face peel?" And I haven't, because everything about my cellular structure is just enhanced. It's just come to light. And there's another word that's just come, reformation of cellular body. I feel like I'm coming to light. Whether that's coming to life. Now, let me just go on very quickly. I really feel this is all about the ability to take the physical body through this transition. Mm-hmm. And that has always been an underlying desire of mine, is to remain conscious and to take a light-filled physical body into this transition where the atmosphere will become highly ionized. You'll see density imploding, as it is already beginning to implode, because the ion levels are increasing day by day in the atmosphere. The air we're breathing is changing. So if the ionic components of our air is changing, then those are going into our body. Is our cellular body able to cope with those changes? So the best thing I know how, in all my innocence and all my naivety and in some respects my out-and-out ignorance of what's happening, is just pack lightly for this little trip. And I mean light. And the first thing is the body. Just off. Get rid of everything that has no use whatsoever for your body now. be ruthless about it.
Thank you, Scott, for sharing. And we're going to go to a song, and I'm going to play the same song I've played for the last few weeks, simply because I've been getting messages from people on Facebook telling me they love it. And it's Jose Aguilas, Cycling Trivialities. And when we come back, I want to talk about a Mayan elder video clip that goes for about 30 minutes. It's been doing the rounds on Facebook. It's been posted on my wall about 6 times. So remind me, somebody, when we get back. And I'll see you all in about 8 minutes.
Without knowing what you wanted them to mean. So, how's it gonna be when it all comes down to cycling trivialities? So, how's it gonna be?
Okay, welcome back. And thank you to Scott for sharing the links to the video that I was referencing in the chat room. And I didn't realize his name was Akhtar. Now, one of the things, I don't profess to have followed everything he said in regards to the scientific side of things, but what caught my attention in particular was this 8 minutes he was referring to. He said when this energy wave hits, there will be a peak period of 8 minutes. Has anybody, Barbara, Bob, Chris, Scott, who's watched the video?
No, I have watched it.
Yes, I've seen it.
So, what I found it interesting that people then jumped on that and went, what exactly when is this 8 minutes going to hit in my part of the world? Oh, God. And what he said about it was have a piece of paper and a pen handy, which made me wonder whether we're going to lose our, internet or technology for a little bit. But that for those 8 minutes, you'll have insights. You'll kind of know everything, and you'll have ideas and insights and knowing, and take notes, because once it starts to wear off, you'll start to forget, which I thought was a really interesting concept. What did you take away from it more than anything? I'll start with Scott. You've seen the video. What did you take away from it?
I don't know that we will. Well, I guess I'm just talking from my own perspective. I'm not sure if I'm going to be sitting down with a pen and pencil and going to rattle off during that 8 minutes every thought that comes to my mind. But he did say, which is really interesting, that some thoughts that will come to mind that you can write may in fact serve as a guide for establishing a framework for how the new world will look. Mm-hmm. We don't know what else is actually going to go on around us at the time, so maybe having a pencil and paper from a practical point of view is a good idea. But if the ion levels are so high and we're actually slowed down to a point where we're barely conscious, are we going to have the capacity to do that anyway? I don't know.
Yes, good point.
So, and again, when is the 8 minutes going to occur? But maybe if as individuals we elect to sort of go into a meditative state for the period of 3 days, we will just know when that 8 minutes is in, because the thoughts will start pouring in, and we'll just take notes. So, yeah, I'm not getting too hung up about it, but it's going to be a good time, I feel.
The other thing that I thought was interesting in that was his reference to the Mercury light globes. Now, can somebody who understood what he was saying from the scientific perspective elaborate on what he was talking about? Chris, you might have understood it better than I did.
He actually didn't explain it in any great detail, but the bit that I actually wish I'd watched it just before the show, actually, because with that in mind. But my interpretation is that the powers that be want to actually, they'd like to completely stop any kind of consciousness event, but at least subdue it. But what I gather, the presence of Mercury around us in such great quantities in some way will subdue the effects. Mm. And also serve to amplify some other stuff that they're trying to do. It's again just part of their. I'm impressed by some of the degree, the long-term thinking that they have, the detail that they have is quite extraordinary, and I wish it was bent to a more positive kind of outcome. But they appear to have had plans afoot for a long time, and some of them aren't so obvious, and it was very interesting to hear him talking about that. But my view on the pen and paper is this. How many times have you gone to an event that you knew would be exciting and been so enthralled that you didn't take the camera out of your pocket that you'd brought with you and take a picture?
Yeah, true. True.
So I really get out of that, because there are probably going to be a lot of people out there who'll say, geez, I wish I'd had a pen and a bit of paper then at the time, because I just can't quite remember what it was I was really thrilled about. And as far as the timing of the 8 minutes, it'll happen when it happens. It's if we get hung up on exact times and exact dates, I think we'll miss the whole point of this, which is to experience the event. And I think the greatest thing that we need to focus on is just to be in the right frame of mind and to approach this as an exciting and joyous event and not one of a matter of fear. I think that's really important, because the more of us that are out there in that positive state, the more positive the overall effect is going to be. I think that's really obvious right now.
You know, when he was talking about the Mercury light globes, I had laughed. I just thought, how insidious. You know, if they think that, I got the impression that these Mercury light globes around the planet were possibly going to explode when this energy hits, which is going to create all this toxic environment, you know, because they're in most households these days.
I think it's probably not quite as drastic as that. If you think, there's always been information around that the frequency that's emitted when the mercury is actually activated is actually suppressive of our higher conscious or higher vibrations of our consciousness. Think of that, and if you've ever seen a mercury tube, be it a normal fluorescent tube, you turn the lights off and are in a dark room, and all of a sudden you realize the tube is still slightly active. Okay, and because I have a feeling one of the effects that will pass through as whatever happens is the actual electromagnetic fields in the atmosphere are going to be very high. And when I'm talking about physical fields, high voltage fields, you've seen we've spoken of the lights that occur around volcanoes when they're going off and around earthquakes when they're going off. Well, if there's very large electromagnetic fields, you'll actually see those lights flicker and become active. They'll start emitting the frequencies that they normally emit when they're powered up by the mains. And I have a feeling that's the mechanism they're going to use, because if you're near one, if it's on the ceiling above you, maybe their plan is that will have a disruptive effect on the experience that you're going to have. And obviously that's what they want. They don't want us to wake up. They don't want us to have this experience. It's not on their list of things to do. That's my current working theory.
So from a practical point of view, turn the mains off. So for a few days.
Yeah, unfortunately, the only thing you could do is change the light bulbs, because these light bulbs will activate whether they're plugged into the mains or not, because that's the way these devices behave. If they're in a high enough electromagnetic field, they will start to react to it. It doesn't have to be the mains. So get rid of them. Take them out of your house. Take them down. Replace them with old incandescents, or go to LED.
You can't get incandescents anymore, at least not in Australia.
Well, I've got a few in my cupboard. If you come around, I'll happily give you some.
If you stockpiled them, yeah, for sure. But you just can't buy them anymore.
I actually haven't. I don't have a stockpile of them. I actually have what I removed when we went over to LEDs, because I tried to skip the fluoros and go straight to LEDs.
Okay. Sorry, Barbara, what were you going to say?
Why is that they don't sell them anymore?
The powers that be just do not want us having access, because so many people were not happy about it that they just didn't give us a choice. Because given a choice, we wouldn't buy these mercury-filled fluoro things.
Wow.
So they just stopped us from having a choice.
Wow. Thank you.
Now, Chris, it's being asked of you to please share your awakening back in 2009.
Can you hang on?
Don't mind.
Yeah, I will. Just hang on there while I hang up on this caller.
Okay, sure. Bob, did you want to share anything about that video then, before we get to Chris?
Yeah, one of the things that I recall when I was watching the movie, I don't know if any of you have ever seen DMT, the spirit molecule.
Oh, a long time ago, yeah.
Well, that experience is one of the things that both Terence McKenna and a lot of other people feel that this wave is going to cause everyone to have like a massive DMT trip. Now, if anybody who's ever taken DMT or experienced anything like that, most people have a drastic change in their life after that experience. It's one of those spiritual awakenings that last for years afterwards. much more powerful than just taking mushrooms or anything. You're actually experiencing a completely different reality and seeing things from a completely different perspective. And all of the different writings, the Mayans, the Hopi, and they talk about, what's going to happen, this transformation. A lot of what they describe is correlates to what happens when your mind is flooded with this dimethyltryptamine, which literally activates your pineal gland, and it's a chemical that your pineal gland produces, and it has this tremendous effect on people.
You're making me have visions of the whole planet having a collective near-death experience.
In a positive way.
In a positive way, yeah. Yeah. That sounds like what we're up for.
Well, for some people in a positive way. That's the whole
life experience.
That's the whole rub, a lot of times when you go into these states, when you're not clear, and if anybody's ever had a bad trip, you'll know what I'm saying. All of the fears and all of the things that you have in your subconscious become very real in these places. Extremely real. And we talked a little bit earlier about people walking around talking to imaginary people. Imagine, that this reality becomes really real for them, where they're being attacked or they're being, by their own fears, by their own anxieties, by their own guilt, by their own resentments. And they get to experience this, in a very real way. So it's going to be a profound experience for everyone, but I wouldn't say that it would be a positive experience for everyone. It really depends on the person and where you're at.
Well, yeah, that's true. It'll be what it is for you. Yeah.
What would be fun, Lisa, is if because I've heard a lot of questions, the kind that you can't answer, that everybody has a different take on. But it would be kind of cool if we took, say, the top 3 questions and tried to then see if we could get this connection to Source to provide us collectively with some kind of answers, and then bring all those back to the table next week to see if anybody got anything that they felt was, an answer to one of those questions.
Nice idea. Nice idea.
But you guys have to come up with the 3 questions.
Yeah, no pressure. Okay, Chris, if you wouldn't mind, we've got half an hour left. If we could spend a couple of minutes just talking with you, sharing, your story, and then we'll move on to what we're going to do for this week. And seeing as nobody has called in to share their experiences from last week, we'll move on to what we're going to talk about, and perhaps everybody can put in with some ideas about their top 3 questions. But for now, Chris, would you mind sharing?
Sure. First of all, obviously, you have to know a little bit about where I come from, in the sense of why I reacted the way I did to what happened. Because it was simply just a photograph. It was a photograph of the detail at ground level of a crop circle in England. And it was one of the crop circles where there was a large circular area, but inside it, a pattern had been created by a whole lot of what appeared to be, it gave the impression of having a massive number of metallic plates inside this circle that were forming a kind of textured spherical appearance if you viewed it from a distance, if you viewed it from the air. And I looked at the thing from the air and I thought, why does it look like that? And I went and looked at the ground shots, and as soon as I saw this photograph, I knew 2 things. I knew it wasn't fake, because I'm actually a scientific photographer by training, and I know what's practical to do or not do with Photoshop. Why would anyone bother to fake a photo like this? And that there's no way that human beings could actually create overnight this 3-dimensional, twisted, beautifully constructed, incredibly consistent pattern over such a large area. It basically sort of went pop in my paradigm. because I knew that there was a big lie being told, because I'd bought the mainstream media rubbish about crop circles, and all it took was one photo. That photo led to, I spent some time looking at crop circles, realised there were far more crop circles, far more complex, completely inexplicably done. Started looking at just things that popped up in YouTube when you looked at crop circles, and ran across Project Camelot, and of course that's the rabbit hole of all rabbit holes in terms of video material, and been down many of them, been down probably all of them to some degree. I've mainly been in the 3 years till about the last 9 months really focused on physical events, dig a bunker. Coming to the realization that that's not what this entire thing was all about, that's what it was being twisted into by you-know-who, to keep the fear level up and retain control. But it's not exactly a sexy wake-up story, in the sense that I didn't actually have a samadhi experience and speak to grandfather, as Peter and Michael would say. But it was the next best thing. It was the thing that really in life that used to get my attention as a kid, when the old man would give me a fast clip over the side of the head because, I'd stepped out of line. It was like the universe going, time to wake up. Smack. Worked for me.
Well, it was the perfect one for you because it tapped into an area of knowledge that you had. The reason the knife went in so deep was that I absolutely knew that you couldn't fake that. You couldn't fake the photo, and you couldn't fake the actual objects in the photo. There was no way that it wouldn't be real. And there was just photo after photo after photo of the same crop circle, all from different angles, all showing the same inexplicable thing. So yeah, it cut straight to the heart of my reality, if you like. Interesting how the universe does that. You go from crop circles are created by two drunk guys on their way home from the pub to aliens are real.
Pretty much. I have to add to it one thing. I've always accepted that we were being visited by others, because I actually had a really interesting UFO sighting when I was about 18. In about 10 o'clock at night, I'm on the border of Western Australia, South Australia, on a trip with my folks and the family.
Out in the middle of nowhere in the desert. So
oh yeah, it's
good place to have that.
The stars are just gorgeous. It's a clear night. I've gone off to recycle some trivialities, as they say, by myself. I look up, 2 UFOs streaking across the sky. Now I thought, meteorites, and then one of them did a right-hand turn.
Mm-hmm. That'll do it.
Yeah, well, I lost concentration completely at that point. And the interesting thing was I ran straight back to my brothers and said, I just saw two UFOs. I saw 2 meteors, and one did a right-hand turn. And my older brother, who's the scientist, said, that's impossible. That defies the laws of physics. He shut me down straight away. Boom.
Just dismissed it, just like that.
Just dismissed it. You couldn't have seen it. You couldn't have seen it. It was impossible. Couldn't have happened. Impossible. Yeah, he just basically said, you're seeing things. Now, he doesn't say that anymore. I've been working on him for some years now. He doesn't say that anymore. But that's also part of my personal history. So I do accept that there is stuff out there that we're not being told about or don't know about. I found out very quickly that we're just not being told about it. And there's a hell of a lot more going on than anyone in my position originally before I got awoken would ever conceive of. And I could not believe what I started to find. It's like there's a bit of material that we've discovered in the last week, and Bob's seen it, and I've listened to it and read some of it. It's the most explicit blow-by-blow historical account of how the Western political and financial systems were literally taken over and subverted to an agenda of a very small group of people over a period of 200-300 years or more. And these lumps of information drop into our reality at a great rate at the moment. They're just going wham, 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 and it just pulls into focus many things that you've learned. And you call it dot connection, but it's actually more like coming into focus.
Yeah, for the
like an image
for the
comes into focus.
for the conspiracy nuts amongst us. You'll love this. Bob, can you share what it's called again?
What it's called is The Great American Adventure. A retired judge spills the beans on everything. And the judge's name is Judge Dale. I'm certain that's probably not his real name, or at least not his full name. But I wouldn't, without being able to identify the person, if the information in it wasn't so profound, so well knit together, and so plausible and so succinct, I would discredit the whole thing. But once you start to read, this whole other world opens up, and you, like Chris says, everything comes into focus, and you understand and you see, the reality of the situation and how we got to where we are, and it was quite profound for me. Lisa, I first thing in the morning when you got up, that was the first thing I told you. You got to share this with everyone. But I can put the link in the chat where you can watch the video where someone is actually narrating it, and you can read along. And I'm sure that I can post a link where you can actually download the documents. And
that'd be great.
Themselves.
So when you're looking around and you've been wondering why the world is the way it is, and it doesn't make sense, this will help. So, Barbara, can you repeat what you said before about the questions on everybody's lips?
Just simply that as you all have been talking for the last half hour or so, I've heard questions being asked, more rhetorical, because we don't really have the answers. And if we can encapsulate them into, 2 or 3 questions, then we can put those questions out there with the intent of getting the answers back and see what happens.
Okay, guys, so in the chat room, what's your number one question at this time? Is it about those 3 days? Is it about what happens afterwards? Is it about what to do to prepare mentally or emotionally or physically? What is your number one question? Let's see if we can't get a consensus.
Well, I know that for one thing that you've brought up a number of times is the event. Is there going to be an event? Or something along those lines? Because I think that that's on everybody's top 10 list.
Well, I know that the Indigenous here are starting to talk, and they're expecting an event. I know that from watching that clip that we were just discussing, the Mayans are expecting an event. We have people who channel, that we get messages from, who are discussing an event. We get the, voice garbled, cobra type people who talk about an event. The discussion around an event is prevalent. If it wasn't for the Indigenous talking about an event, I would write the whole thing off as a psyop. But they're the ones that I take the most notice of. I think they're the ones who still have the memories. They still, the Dreamtime stories of the Australian Indigenous are still very much a part of their culture and their knowledge base. And they're talking about an event. They're talking about past events that happened. We're also being told that nothing like what is about to happen has ever happened before. That's the other message that comes through. So I don't think even if the Australian Indigenous remember what it was like last time, it's not going to be the same. We're talking about something bigger, I think. So we are all just kind of stumbling around in the dark trying to figure this out, or as a friend of ours says, we're paving the road as we travel. And every day we get a little bit more insight or a little bit more, a bit more of a sense of certainty, perhaps, about some aspects of the times we're in. But we are all just, from what I can gather and from my observations of myself and others, we're all being in the moment a lot more and taking one step at a time. And I think that's the best thing for us to do right now anyway. But it doesn't seem to be even a conscious thing. It's like we can't help it. I couldn't tell you what we talked about at the beginning of the show because I feel like I'm so in the moment these days that once the moment's gone, it's gone. If you don't get me in that moment to, I don't know, discuss a particular thing, then it's gone. You know. So let me have a look at some of the questions that are coming through. Lost signal. Okay, not that far back. I want my DMT. What do we got?
Well,
Staying connected.
Yeah, Bila says, how do we stay connected and support one another? I was thinking specifically around the times that are coming upon us. But, whatever, it was just a suggestion.
Oh, but I think it's a good one. And unless anybody else has got any other ideas. Bob, how do you feel about leading us on a meditation with the intent for us to make a connection with our higher self and with the collective to get answers in whichever way they come, whether it's through music or the comments of a stranger behind you in a queue or whatever way they come, to give us some ideas about how to be in the coming weeks and what's the best way to spend those 3 days? That's my question. My intent is to actually stay at home. I want to be at home. I want to have done a big shop beforehand so that I don't have to leave the house to go to groceries or anything. And just be with my family, just hanging out at home with no mercury light globes in the house. So that's what I want to do. And not even get in the car if I can. I just want to, I'll walk down to the beach if it's nice and walk back, and that's it. I just want to be. So do you think you could do that? Don't forget my wine. Yeah, I'll have to stock up on wine.
Yes, absolutely. Definitely. We can do that.
Okay,
Are
great.
we going to have everyone to be able to choose their own question or to question the universe as they see fit, or just those specific questions?
I'm just looking at the comments.
Why can't we do both? Because that way, it's not like when we give out an intent, it has to be limited. That way, then, if they have their own private things that they're not sharing, but they still would like to know about, and for whatever reason are not sharing it on in the chat room or whatever, let them get their answers, and then we get ours. I was just thinking, for purposes of offering it back next week, it's a lot easier when we have something specific that we're focusing on to then show we can connect the dot between that and this.
Okay, I think we can do both. Let's ask a specific question of maybe how to spend those 3 days, and then also leave it open we can also ask any other questions. Does that work?
That works fine.
Okay. I've just got to find our meditation music. Here we go. Take it away, Bob, and if everybody else would meditate. Meditate. You just...
Okay, everyone. I want everyone to take a deep breath in their nose and out of their mouth. Focus on your breathing. Feel the air, feel your nostrils, move down your throat, feel your lungs. Feel the chest rising and falling. Feel the rhythm. Soon the rhythm is transmitted into your heart. And I want you to focus your energy. Continue to breathe. And with this connection with the heart, each is using the heart with the essence of life, the essence of the universe, the essence of nature itself. And it is harmonizing every cell unto it. Feel it move through your body, invigorating you, cleansing you. All of the discordant frequencies are now being cleared. A pulse of energy radiating out of you, moving all of the static between you and that source of nature, that universal power. Feel the connection between all of us, like branches on a tree, connected in twisted and beautiful ways, and each of our thoughts resonate together. In this clear field where there is no static, there is no break, we ask the intention, the question in our minds, and understand that the question will be answered in its own time and in its own way, in a way that we will recognize it, in a way that we will see it in our lives and understand what it is, where it is that we should go, and what it is that we should be ready for, and what is best for us to do in this period of time of great change. Any thoughts now that you have, questions, will resonate with the power of all of our voices. It will echo into the universe and reverberate back to you. Anything that you wish to know, or even if you wish to ask what you wish to ask for, it is enough. Understand that you are heard. Understand that you are led. Understand you are never alone. Take a deep breath and bring the energy back into ourselves. Knowing that we have been fully and clearly heard, and all of our intentions, circumstances, all of our experiences are being taken into account in our question. And each answer will be perfect for each of us. And so it is. Everyone can come back now. Open your eyes. Know in the new day.
Thank you, Bob.
No problem.
Is everybody back? That was very nice.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, 8 minutes to go, guys. Closing comments. Anything from you, Barbara?
Nothing in particular. I really enjoyed the conversations that we've had this evening.
Yeah, nice. And it's gone really quickly, I think. For me, it has anyway.
Despite technical difficulties, we still managed.
That was fun. Have fun.
Yeah. No concept of time right now, I must say. Oh, and I did hear. Where did I hear this? I don't know. Can't tell you. I hear so many things. A comment, which I thought was great. One of the things that's talked about in this upcoming period is that we're going into zero time, or the time of no time. That linear time as we currently know it will cease to be. And that one of our most common phrases is time is money. Now, if we can't measure time in the way we do now, that automatically results in a change in how we trade, in commerce, in the financial world. Because if we can't measure it the way we do, because we trade our time for money, then what does that mean?
Maybe our unusual sleep patterns could answer that. Maybe they're trying to adjust us for what's to come.
Yeah, but I'm just in terms of the financial situation. You know, this whole current structure would be completely superfluous.
Good.
In the video that the Mayan that we've been looking at, and two interesting things about that. One is that it's been there since 2010, and it's just popped out again when we obviously needed to be reminded of what he said. And one of the things he did say was that if, when this event is over, you still need money, then you haven't changed. You're back where you were.
Did he say that?
He said that. You watch the video.
Oh, I am going to have to watch it again.
It's right at the end, I think, from memory. And it's going to be almost... See, I don't think that changes will be instantaneous. Changes like this are so vast across a big civilization, it'll ripple out for weeks and months. And one of the things that we can use to measure whether the event really is what we thought it was is to watch commerce and see whether it just continues to fall apart. Because one of the things there should be two things happening. One, that commerce will start to fall apart, and that its replacement will appear at the same time. And if we're sort of aware of that process.
One of the things, like Jason said earlier, he doesn't know if it's a technical term in the psychological world, but the term that I keep hearing is normalcy syndrome. Now, we can't imagine everything changing at once because it hasn't happened before. And this is what this normalcy syndrome is. It's a denial about what's happening because we haven't experienced it before. And whenever I've heard it referenced, people use Germany during the Second World War as the perfect example of it. You know, the people saying, well, you know, the Gestapo or the SS, they won't come after me because they're only after, at the moment, they're coming after the gays. And I'm not gay, so it won't happen to me. And then, now they're only coming after... And first the denial in the first place is that it would never happen. But then it starts to happen and you change your framework. Well, it won't happen to me because... And it's because it hasn't happened before. So we get into this... We fall into this normalcy syndrome where, because this hasn't happened before, where there's been an absolutely mind-blowing, instant, global change, that we can't grasp the concept of it happening like that. We make it logical and think, well, it'll happen like this, in like you said, in domino effect, a ripple effect. It'll happen over time, because we just haven't seen it happen before. But what if? I mean, that's my favourite question. What if? Yes, again, Lisa, it's like cognitive dissonance. And when I hear comments like that, Chris, like this is the way it's likely to happen, to me it's a bit of cognitive dissonance. It's a bit of normalcy syndrome, because we get very into our brain about it and try to make it look logical. How can my brain accept that?
Yeah, well, I actually...
This might have nothing to do with our brain accepting anything.
Yeah, I actually completely agree with you. My comment was strictly from my well, not strictly, but in part from my former position as a mainstream thinker. That's how I evaluate the likely outcome. I could be completely wrong. And you know what? I hope I am. That's one of my greatest hopes, that it will actually simply be a consciousness event that sweeps across the planet, and we turn around and we say, hang on, what's this war stuff for? Not doing that anymore. Commerce? No, we'll go and do it some other way. That's what I hope. And that it will be very, very rapid.
I agree with you 100%. I think everybody needs this event to happen and to really take hold of themselves.
This has been a good show.
It has. And guys, I will probably not be with you next week. I think I'll be in the air on a plane on my way to America. So unless I can do it while I'm at the airport, waiting to board my plane, we'll see. 10 seconds to go. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Once again, thank you, Bob, Barbara, Jason, Chris. Shout out to Michael and Peter, if you bother listening to the archive. And see you all next week, hopefully.
Okay,
bye-bye.
Good night.